If you feel as though we just talked about Autopsy, you're not wrong. It's only been about 9 or 10 months ever since we last talked about this band. June the 30th of 2013. And 2 years before that, in September, we talked about Macabre Eternal, which was their grand, their grand re-envisioning here on the modern age after a long period of dormancy. So yeah, with Tourniquets, Hacksaws, and Graves, the album we're talking about today, the 2014 studio album from Autopsy, we have a gap of about 10 months to talk about, and really this is something that was a little bit more commonplace for rock bands and R&B artists from the 60s and 70s to really put out 2 to 3 albums worth of material within one calendar year. But recently, in recent times, this is not something that you see quite as often. In fact, if anything, you see more often than not gaps of 2 to 3 years, kind of what you saw between Macabre Eternal in 2011 and the Headless Ritual in 2013. So immediately, you're considering this is so uncommon, you're wondering whether or not this was leftover material from the previous sessions, either that or if this is something that just came together so rapidly. It kind of makes you a little fearful about what the result is going to be, because it seems as though the same level of time hasn't passed between the last album and this one. What actually happened here is that Autopsy just started immediately writing material for a new album, almost less than a month after. In fact, it might have been even happening as the previous album was being recorded. There was just so many ideas. The catalyst for this band has just really gone on to overdrive, principally because they have been back and they've been getting very warm responses for their albums, for their depravity, for their fantastic riffing, and their fantastic re-showcasing of what they are themselves all about. So with this album, we have 12 tracks on it, including one that's I haven't seen a while on an album for a band, and that's a self-titled track. So there is a track on here called Autopsy, and this clocks in at a little less than 50 minutes. I believe it's around 48 to 49 minutes in length without having to refer to it immediately. And this is certainly one where I have to say that if the last 2 albums really did not convince you that this band was really doing well, not to mention they have really returned with a fierce vengeance, not to mention with just a bloody disposition on the world, then this album isn't necessarily going to change your mind all of that much, but that really isn't to say that it is a bad album. It just is to say that it's on par with the last 2 releases, and that's a good thing, because the last 2 releases have both been very crunchy and very good. I really love the execution of Autopsy ever since that they've come back. It's something that they were present with on their original incantation, and something that they kind of grew as their first wave of their career initially progressed, but then whenever it comes to the second portion of their career, it's something that has only become a little bit more fierce and a little bit more dedicated. The shorter tracks are a lot more fierce. They have a lot more in the way of pump behind it, not to mention there's a lot more in the way of just rage behind it. And then whenever they have the opportunity rather, to slow down the narrative a little bit and give it a little bit of that doom edge, along with their death metal stylings that almost have a little smidgen of grind in there if you really want to go that route. I mean, we're going to be talking about Aborted here in about a minute or a day or whatever, and so you could definitely tell where there's a lot of influence between one band and the next. Autopsy definitely played a part in shaping Aborted's career, and this is something where here in the second wave, it's ever present all the more. It's been aided by a little bit of a more impressive production, which they've been able to degrade down with their natural chaos and their natural sound in order to really create just a great sonoscape, a really great, wonderful presence as far as setting this dark mood that Autopsy has kind of been known for ever since they first came out. I really have to give praise to The Howling Dead. Really great track, about 6 minutes in length. This is one that really showcases a lot of the different parts of the Autopsy trade. This is something where you can hear how the vocalist is able to do a little bit more with his voice than just really stay very monochrome with the death metal vocal patterns that we are so accustomed and atypical to hearing. Really, whenever bands go kind of outside of the realm and really try something different, sometimes it is something that doesn't go very very well. However, more often than not, what it leads to is a very unique feel to the track. Not to mention, it gives the album a little bit more of a resistance to perhaps being instantly labeled as kind of, you know, cheesy, a one-off, or something that's very akin to the genre, something that's very similar to various other things that you hear. It gives it a particle of uniqueness, and that's certainly one thing that Howling Dead really showcases, but it showcases things that Autopsy already does extremely well. It's something where they're able to change up the pacing on the track by itself, but at the same time also change up the vocal patterns. This is something that really works to Autopsy's advantage. It's something that was present on Macabre Eternal, if you remember the second to last track. It's something that really created a lot of nightmares and a lot of disturbing images for probably a lot of fans, all things considered. Now, that's not to say that the rest of this album is a slouch. No. Do not take that the wrong way. It's just that this is kind of a very mixed bag of different tricks that Autopsy's been able to showcase, and really that short relay time between one album and the next really showcases that they were sort of in the same frame of mind as they were for the Headless Ritual, because there's a lot of tonal similarities. Although those tonal similarities are being explored a little bit more on this album, as far as how long they're writing the songs, how savage that they are able to incorporate, you know, their traditional style, and, you know, where they're able to incorporate a little bit of element of a slowdown or a doom, or, you know, something even darker and deeper than that. I really like the fact that they did finally release a song just called Autopsy. I felt like that was something that really, I was shocked that it hadn't been done years ago. I was really very surprised that hadn't been done perhaps on the very first album, where it was kind of commonplace for that to happen. However, it happened now here in 2014, and for a 5-minute and 47-second long closer, it definitely fits the bill. This is certainly one that is able to really communicate the idea in song quality, not to mention in death metal quality, and Autopsy, of course, being one of the best in the business, is able to translate all of that very beautifully into just pure and sinister chaos, and I love it. This is another one of those albums where whenever you listen to it the first time, you really don't get the full grasp of the experience. This is something that you need to listen to multiple times through in order to really kind of showcase the subtle genius behind it. The showcase that, you know, they were able to take a very simple idea such as, you know, the Headless Rituals concept and the Headless Rituals, you know, musical idealism, and really shake it up and shift it up enough where those with untrained ears aren't even going to recognize the fact that the two have a little bit of a similarity point between the two of them. And also what I dig about this is that based around that individualism that it's able to create for itself, it shapes itself as just a really fantastic album. I really wasn't sure how I was going to feel about an album called Tourniquets, Hacksaws, and Graves, but reflecting upon that even further, it just really showcases that Autopsy just kind of likes to be creative. They kind of like to do things that you don't 100% expect, you know. They kind of just take something that, you know, for most of us are just 3 words that really would be better off being maybe a forgotten Cannibal Corpse song title, and instead they incorporate a whole entire album around the idea and basically name the album that. I really like the fact that they do this, because it just showcases that Autopsy is a band that's willing to take some risks. There's no boundary that they won't cross, and it's just a great showing of what the band has been really able to do throughout their career and what they have really meant for the genre. So overall, I'd probably give this album an 81 out of 100. This is certainly one that really, like I said, is kind of par for the course as far as the last two are concerned. It really matches with it very nicely. And you might think that, well, what about musical evolution? What about this and that you usually stress, Coverkiller Nation? Well, they did provide musical evolution. Really, whenever you do that and you maintain a par for the course for albums that have come out previously, sometimes that is a negative. However, in the case of Autopsy and in the case of Tourniquets, Hacksaws, and Graves, it's really a positive thing, because it really maintains the brutality level. It really maintains that feeling that you really want to continue to just see what Autopsy does, and you're still pleased with the results as to what you've already gotten. What did you guys think about this album? What did you guys think about the last couple of Autopsy albums? What do you think about the band in general? We'll talk to you guys next time. Of course, if you love this video, please like it and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. It really does help, and I thank each and every one of you who have been subscribers for a long time. We just recently passed the 20,000 subscriber threshold. I really don't have anything planned for it, so I just wanted to thank you outright in a video. And secondly, because this is not about me whatsoever, it's about the bands, I want to thank every single band that I've reviewed. I want to thank Autopsy. And I want to thank about all of you, really, for just making this music that has really created this foundation. I love listening to it and talking about it, and that's about all I have. Thank you guys. Have a good one.